presentation by Kieren McCarthy, and the title is
what Nominet needs to rebuild member trust.
Okay, so about the Nominet. Before we start, can we see how many Nominet members do we have here listening?
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
So, okay, do we have more Nominet members there? Hey, Nominet members? Do you? Okay. Okay, everybody has been invited. I think we can start.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you all for hanging around after, there's basically beer flowing as the evening. So thank you very much for coming and listening to me talk. So Nominet members, about 6 here. Sort of related question. Did you know what happened last year with respect to Nominet? Any of you follow what happened with Nominet? Who knows who Nominet is? Okay. Nominet is the organization that runs the .uk registry. And so they develop all the rules and they decide, all your businesses are dependent on Nominet. And but hopefully in a very gentle way. Nominet runs the registry, sets the rules, and then registrars and all of you work on the top of that foundation. It has a very important role. It should be just sort of underlying everything. It should be something that you rarely hear about, but occasionally get involved in. But the reason I'm here is that a year ago they had a extraordinary general meeting, which basically the CEO and the chair and various board members were booted off by the members for lots of good reasons, which we won't go into now. But basically it was a very big blow-up. It's not the first blow-up that Nominet's been through. I would say it's probably the third, maybe the fourth, depending on how you draw explosions. It was pretty big. And so I've decided to stand in an effort to try and make sure it basically never happens again. And I'll tell you why I think, how you do that and why I think I can help do that. How many of you have ever voted in a Nominet election? Okay, so 4. Okay. I'm going to try and encourage you, number one, to become a member if you're not, because you're in this industry. And secondly, if you are a member, to vote, because that's literally how you get to decide how the industry works on that foundational level. So, I called my talk, what Nominet needs to do to rebuild member trust, which sounds very dull, but rebuild member trust has become this term that Nominet in particular has been using a lot in the last year, and for good reason, right? So I've got some quotes from top people in Nominet about this trust issue. The previous chair, Mark Wood, literally just after he'd lost the vote that kicked him out of his job, said, I find it sad that we've got to this point. I'm sure he did, because he just lost his job. In the past, we clearly haven't listened well enough to our members. We know there are many things we need to do better. Then the interim chair, who took over from him, Rob Binns, in his first formal response said, I feel I should begin by acknowledging the degree to which trust has broken down between many members in the organisation. I'm relatively new to Nominet. I recognise the root causes go back many years. We can't change the past. Here's an opportunity to reset and begin rebuilding the relationship between membership and Nominet. Then the interim CEO, this was in April 2021, Eleanor Bradley, who had literally just been kicked off the board and was then made CEO because the CEO had just resigned, i.e. this was a massive S-show, said, clearly there's much more to do to rebuild trust between the organisation and many of our members. I'm just iterating that the trust was the thing that came out of this. Then there was a listening exercise, which I hope some of you are involved in. That the big report came out in October, said trust is a major issue impacting perceptions of Nominet amongst some members. One of the key findings has been the erosion of trust in Nominet. And then the new chair in October last year said, I hope the intent is clear to ensure we play our part as the .uk registry and in the wider world and earn the trust of our members. So the reason why I give you all those quotes is because the summary of this massive explosion, which really caused, I would say, a lot of damage to the fundamentals of .uk was they agreed there wasn't enough member trust. Members didn't trust them enough. Now that's code for lots of things. It's code for we didn't think you had the power to do what you did, which was basically fire the CEO and chair. We didn't think that you noticed or cared what we did, which is to basically spend millions of pounds on several failed commercial projects that failed, and they were not very open about what happened, and members started chasing, saying, where is all our money going? What are these businesses that you've bought? How much money are they bringing in? And they weren't getting any answers at all. So that was part of the issue. And it's also code for, we paid ourselves huge bonuses in these failing businesses, but, there was a lack of member trust there. I mean, there's code for a lot of things, but let's talk about trust, because that's the language that is going to work for .uk, right? So let's accept that the trust is lacking, which it is, because everybody says it is. Let's accept that trust is essential, because it is, because it's .uk registry, and you have to be able to trust that what they're fundamentally doing is in everybody's interest. So, but what does trust mean in this concept? Now, so I would argue that it means a sense of security, that you know that what happens when you buy a domain, that it's got to go in the system, that it will work the same. It will work the same every single time, that it will work fast every single time. A sense of total security that it will work. A sense of confidence that nothing will go wrong. You won't suddenly lose your domains. You won't try and transfer a domain and go wrong. This is fundamental technical underpinnings. But you need a security and you need confidence in it working. And that also relates to decisions that are made about how to change things in future. I don't know how many of you have been sort of in the DNS, but it has changed a lot. In the 20 years ago, it was a very, very different system to how it is now. And so there are constant changes that happen to DNS, and there will be constant changes in future. So you have to have confidence that it's going to be done in a safe, secure way, and that's why it's important that Nominet makes decisions in a safe and secure way that you're all informed about, that you all know will work. It's important that there is consistent process and there's a dependable process. So when the big change is made, you go, oh, this is the way that this works. Oh, we know that we can rely on this, and that hasn't always been the case, and it needs to be the case. And there needs to be a build-up of credibility over time. Trust is like, you can't just instantly do one good thing and say, oh, well, now you must trust me. It has to be a gradual build-up, and that's just how we work as human beings. So how do you build up trust? Now, so this is not rocket science, we're all human beings. How do you build up trust? You do what you say you will do, fundamental for an organization. You make your decisions not always been the case. Think that they're going to do well, and then pay yourself large bonuses for buying that company because you think it's going to do well, and then ignore everybody when it doesn't do well. You don't do that. You help people, and this is a fundamental thing where I think Nominet can really improve. It can help its members. I know there's a lot of you that you run relatively small systems compared to the big boys, and there's a standardization effort going on. But Nominet should be helping people get through that process. It shouldn't be, oh, we're doing this and good luck. It should be, are you okay? Are your system's working okay? Have you tried this? What help do you need? You help people. It's a member organization should be helping people. It should recognize others, as in you say, well, this person helped me and this person, this is just normal how you get on in life. If you do something, you achieve something, you don't say, I did it or I'm great. You say, well, this person helped me out, this person helped me out. You recognize others. I don't see a lot of that happening. More of that needs to happen. You show your feelings. That's how you engender trust with people. You say how you feel about something, even when you're annoyed about it. You say that you're happy about something, you know, when you're happy about it, you show your feelings, so you don't act like a faceless corporation, because that doesn't engender trust. And then you would, very important, you admit your mistakes. When you make a mistake, you say, I made a mistake, here's why I made that mistake, and then if necessary, you apologize. But you admit that you made a mistake. That's how you build up trust. I'm going to sort of ask you, is there anything else that, just basic trust levels? Anything else about building up trust? Is it fundamental, right? No one's looking at me like I'm crazy. This is fundamentally how you build up trust. And then when there's been a breakdown of trust, which there has been, you have to do several other things. You have to take responsibility for that. There's been some of that environment. You reflect on what you did to get to that point. You figure out why you did that, and you explain it to people. Not seen a lot of that yet. And you communicate openly with people about this is what went wrong, this is how it went wrong, and you keep your promises, right? So fundamentally, that's how trust works. I know I sort of feel like I'm a psychologist, but we all know that's how trust works. Nominet has been talking a lot about what we have to do is build member trust. That's how you build trust. So how is Nominet doing in this year-long building of trust with its members? It's doing very bad. It is not building up trust. It's not doing what it knows it needs to do. It's not doing what we all know you do to build trust. And then I've got lots of examples, and I'm sure Andrew could give 20 more examples. But for example, are you aware that last month the board went and had a whole discussion about whether to change the entire voting system? About whether, because right now, I don't know whether you're aware, there's a very, I would say, convoluted, complex weighted voting system, and the board had a discussion about, well, maybe we should change this to one member, one vote. And everyone only found out about it when the PDF of the board minutes was posted on a particular web page, and there's one line saying, there's 3 lines saying, we discussed the member vote issue, we decided to stick with what we've got, we'll talk about it again later. That's not the opposite of building trust. The fundamental issue of how much can our members decide which direction this organisation goes in, which, by the way, runs the .uk registry and so undermines everything your business does. You don't then have a discussion and only tell people about it later in a PDF on a specific web page. That's not how you build up trust. How do you build up trust? Pretty easy. You say, we're going to have this discussion, we're thinking about looking at this, we would like your input, and then when it comes out you say, this is the discussion that we had, these were the arguments that were raised, this is what we're thinking of doing next. This is all fundamental, really simple stuff. Nominet is not doing it. It's planning to have another board meeting at some point in the future. I'm not sure when, in a month, 2 months, we don't know. We don't know if there's a staff paper. I hope there's a staff paper. I hope they're not just sat around a room deciding what 2,500 people are going to have to do with a chat with a cup of coffee. I hope there's some structure. There should be some structure. If there isn't, I want there to be some structure. If there is structure, I want to know what it is. I want to know what that paper says. I want to know what the arguments are. And all you should want to know that too. There's the board papers are not published. The staff papers are not published. The board minutes are very small. So literally there's a whole, what do you used to call it in Russia? Criminology. You would sort of read, like, what did they mean? What happened secretly in the meeting? It's madness. They should just simply be saying, this is what happened in the meeting. This was the arguments that we had in this meeting. This is what we're looking at in the future. There's a standardization of .uk coming out, which will definitely impact all of you. Do we shift more? I would argue yes. Do we shift to the system that's used globally for .coms, .net, etc.? I think that argument is a no-brainer. But the question is, how are you going to get there? In what time frame? Making what changes? These are things you should really want to know about. It's going to affect your systems. And Nominet should be telling you actively, this is the bit that we're going to look at now. This is the thing that we're thinking of doing now. Even if you're not jumping up and down and saying, oh, let me in the meeting, they should be letting you know this is what we're doing. And you should be able to say, oh, I want to know about that. and then they come back to you so that you can follow what's going on. And then there's another big issue that they're going to change the drop catching, which I imagine a bunch of you are interested in. There's a document, I know that Anne's been working on it, but it's not enough. It's like, here is what we're going to do. And they haven't discussed it enough. They haven't outlined why they're making those decisions, and so on and so forth. So, these are the fundamental problems. I'm standing for the board in order to try and make Nominet do some of these things, which I feel are very basic, but they are not doing. And it has been a year since they booted off the CEO and the chair and 4 other board members. And I still haven't seen these changes, and that's why I decided to stand, because I thought these changes should already have been here, and I was amazed when they weren't. So I thought, right, well, I know how to do this. This is what I've done for most of my life. I know how to do this, so I will stand for the board and make them make these changes, which includes coming and talking to you and explaining to you why you should be interested in this, why you should want to learn more, and making sure that I get feedback from you on this is what I'm interested in, this is the kind of information I want to get, this is the kind of information I don't want to get, but at least open up that conversation. So what would it be? It would be more openness. It's not hard, you just have to be open. Honest communication, no more legalese. That's just literal plain English, which is not hard to do. You just take all the complicated legalese and you imagine you're describing it to your mate down the pub, and that's what you write, and that's what goes out to people. It's not legally binding. It means that people understand what it is that you're talking about. It's not complicated. To make sure that you feel heard and understood, which has to happen, and make sure there is a push for clear decisions. If a decision is made, you know why it's been made. Even if you don't agree with it, you at least can appreciate, well, that's why they made that decision. And if you're not happy about something, you need to have the ability to go to somebody and say, I'm not happy about this, and then have them listen to you and come back to you and say, okay, well, this is what we did, and this is what we looked at, and this is why. So that's why I'm here, that's why I'm talking to you, that's why I'm standing for the board, that's why I think you should get at least a little bit involved with Nominet, because it's really important to look at that fundamental layer. And then if I do this, and if I'm successful, it should be just something that happens in the background, and you just know that, oh, that organization that does that thing, it works well, and every time I'm interested in something, they contact me about it, and it's all good to go, rather than the blow-ups that have been happening. So that's it. That's my talk. If you want to know more, I've written a whole bunch of stuff. My name, KierenMcCarthy.co.uk. I've put some blog posts and stuff there. And the election is on the 12th of September. So please do vote, and then preferably vote for me. That would be nice. And that's it. So with my long, spewing of trust issues at you, does anyone have any questions or any comments? Or yeah.
Hi. So I'm from a registrar member. I agree with a lot of what you said. My feeling is that Nominet has been on the wrong path for a while. We need to go. We need to undo some changes to those in EGM 2 before Nominet will go back onto the right path. I was wondering whether you in your role, if you were to be elected, how you would see asking or changing Nominet so that it moves forward in a different direction.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack, but so fundamentally, I don't think there should be changes to the corporate structure or the way that member votes are done until there's a much higher level of trust. And I say that because I don't think those decisions should be made until you can get everybody on board with them. And I think they have to work on, letting people believe they're going to listen to you first. So I would say, so this board position is 3 years. In my fantasy, it would be 2 years of building trust, and then a 1 year of listening and getting things locked down, and then I would hand off to people that work on that kind of stuff. So I think before you make structural changes, and that's what every blow-up has been in the past, has been to try to force a structural change, mostly to go a commercial route, and then a big chunk of the membership has been annoyed at that and hasn't been heard, and then it's blown up. So I would say on that, the structural component, you've got to build the trust first, and then yes, there has to be a structural change. And I don't know what it is. That's why I'm not saying what I think it should be. I don't know. It needs to be everybody on board. I do think that there's clear disparities right now. There's clearly the top companies have too much sway. But in the meantime, the way that you demonstrate trust is, I think, Nominet needs to do several things. It needs to make statements. It needs to make a clear statement. We are a member organization. It doesn't do that. It doesn't say we are a member. They can't change their structure unless all the members agree to change the structure, because it is a member organization. You can open up more board seats. You can put your staff on the board. You can pull in more external people on the board. You can push through decisions. But fundamentally, the Nominet's still a member organization. It still has to bring the members along. So I don't know what it looks like, but I am certain that it will be more members with more power at the end of it, and hopefully better decisions. Now, there's a lot of members that are members because they can get a .uk domains for cheaper. That's true. And they may not want to be involved in Nominet. So maybe there's a whole discussion to be had on people like, well, I don't really want to get involved with the governance of it. I just want my .uk. Let's have a discussion about that. And then there's the other issue, of course, is that .uk it is national infrastructure. It is national security on some levels, and you have to recognize that fact as well. It's not just domains. It's not just registrars. This is a fundamental piece of infrastructure. This is the internet. So there are definite stakeholders. UK government, absolutely, is a stakeholder. All the other registrars and registries around the world, absolutely, they're all interconnected. So there has to be some component of that as well. I'm going on a bit, I sense. And so there has to be a statement. We are a member organisation. You've got to respect that. And there has to be other statements about this is our acquisitions policy. This is how our approach to commercialism. I think there should be a statement on the lines of, and I don't think it'll be that hard, we will never enter a market, a commercial market, where our members are a significant part of our members exist in. Nominet should never be touching commercial markets. It just shouldn't. And the fact that it did is a failing. It shouldn't be going in there. It shouldn't be running commercial registries. Yes, sorry.
I comment on that because I think Nominet is unique in having this different categories of registrars.
Yeah.
Self-managed, sort of accredited. Now, a self-managed registrar, Nominet is providing the infrastructure that ICANN registrar would provide for their clients. So there's already something very odd about WK status, because as you say, the domain name proposal will become a Nominet registrar.
Yeah.
And the registrar business, the web domain manager, the software and stuff, all that is being provided by Nominet to the registrar.
Yeah.
And I think this is what adds to a lot of the confusion in the business space. But I'm very interested to hear what your view is about this. About whether Nominet should, you said earlier, Nominet should be supporting its members, its registrars.
Yeah.
Do you think perhaps it should provide a white label registrar site that any registrar can use to provide the service for selling to their clients, their registrars?
So,
is that something that Nominet?
yes, personally, yes, I do. I think if you look at the history of .uk, the reason .uk is .uk and it's not. So you've got .com, so you've got, then underneath that, .net, .org. .uk is a very strong brand and has been for a long time. And there was never a given at all. You look at .fr, you look at you look at .be, you look at the other CCTLDs. .uk is a very powerful registry, and it's a very well-respected registry. And I believe the reason for that is because it took this different approach. It had the members, it worked with the members, and it had this. A lot of the other CCTLDs were sort of academic or they put a lot of restrictions on. And the UK is the UK. We have this sort of connection to sort of commerce, and we also have a connection to Europe. And so Nominet and .uk took this kind of commercial side and pushed it and said it worked with the market and worked with people. And I think that's why, to my mind, you're shaking your head, but sorry, but to my mind, that's why .uk is successful, because it took this different approach. Now, what's the approach in future? I don't know, but what I believe is that members can help decide that. And I think where Nominet got lost was it stopped listening to its members and it started listening only to the market. And if you listen again to the members, and I'm sure there's a lot of members here who have a lot of good ideas, is that, well, this is the way the domain industry is going. I don't know, I'm not in the domain industry, I'm not working on the day-to-day, but I'm sure a lot of you have ideas, oh, if we could do this, this would be better. If Nominet can start listening to its members, you could be the next, Nominet and .uk could be the next move ahead with where registries are going. Like I said, they have moved a lot in the last 20 years and they will keep on moving. To answer your question?
So quick.
Good point. We can talk later. Okay. Any other questions? Nigel, yeah.
Yes, thanks, Nigel Brooks from TCMS. What do you think of Nominet's sort of policy in terms of acquiring generic top-level domains? They run .com really,
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a case to be made. There's a case to be made, like Nominet is very good at running registries, there's no doubt. Like once you hit, I remember talking to Jay Daly, running a registry, he says there's various points where it becomes peaks in terms of technical complexity. He says there's one at about 1 million, there's one at about 5 million, and there's another about 10 million. There's something about that. Once you've got that amount of data flowing and those amount of domains moving, it gets technically, there's big jumps in terms of expertise, in terms of resilience. It gets very difficult. And there's very few companies in the world that can do that. So I think there's an argument to be made for Nominet running a .cymru, a Cymru, sorry, the Welshman, right? Cymru, the .scot, even a .london. There's arguments made, but I do think that those arguments should be hashed out. I would not agree with picking up new GTLDs, commercial ones, .beer or whatever. I don't think that should be Nominet's remit. I think Nominet is a non-profit. Red should always have its focus on .uk, but I think you could argue, as the internet changes, that they could pick up other registries so long as they had the same approach. That's my thought. But I would be open if members said no, this isn't the way to go, and we should just stick solely with .uk. Then I would listen. I'd be open to those views, and if a lot of you said no, definitely, I wouldn't push through what I've decided. I would say, okay, look, the members are saying this. Let's do what the members are saying. So, to answer your question.
Yes, that is.
What do you think about the concept of putting domain transfers on blockchain with smart contracts?
Yeah, so in theory, I like the idea. I know that ICANN has had a knee-jerk reaction to it, and
It's a good job we're not part of ICANN, then, isn't it?
yeah, I worked for ICANN for a couple of years, and so if I was in ICANN, I would be furious with the statement that they put out, and I would be arguing with them vociferously that that was the wrong approach. So blockchain, I think there's huge possibilities in blockchain, massive possibilities in blockchain. I don't know how that would work with the DNS. I think it's definitely something that should be looked into, researched, looked at how you could make it work with the DNS, because the DNS is old technology and blockchain is new technology. I mean, it's not like the internet was magically created and it's a holy monolith. But it is risky in the sense that it would definitely change a lot of things, so it needs to be looked at. But I'm not opposed. I could see it being really incredibly useful. And it wasn't that many years ago that people were worrying that their domain names aren't needed at all because everyone has a Facebook page, which turned out to be, you know, a pretty bad argument. Blockchain could be that, or blockchain could actually be the future too. Like, If you look at who is, for example, that was old technology. Now I'm using RDAP, which is much better. It could be that blockchain is a much better way of doing it. What I wouldn't agree with is just shutting it down because it's new. What I would say is like, okay, there is this technology, it could be done in this way. What are the advantages, what are the disadvantages? And that's the sort of thing that should be looked at. In fact, Nominet, which has a lot of money, by the way, could be one of the organizations that does a really good job looking into this, comes out with a report that then everybody else in the world uses because they say, well, Nominet figured it out.
Well,
they got the best
there are
ones.
domain extensions that are looking at it, using it, and I feel that, you know, particularly in the UK space, we've got the latitude where we're not tied to the bullshit that goes along with ICANN.
That's right.
And that, you know, that there is, you know, potentially a degree of innovation that we can push forward. But again, I wasn't sure what the kind of appetite was within Nominet members or those that are in a steering position to be able to answer where this is going.
So this would be a great example where members could do like exactly what I was arguing, like members could see a way forward and say this is the way to go. And then if it was good, if it worked out that it was faster, cheaper, easier to do this, then yes, implement it. I mean, it would take a while to get there, but implement it, put it in, and then leapfrog.com. I mean, why not? Technology improves all the time. It could also end up being something that is risky. You know, there has been a couple of issues with the blockchain where it's not as secure as some people believe it is. There have been problems with it, and it can be unstable. So there needs to be more security built around it. But for example, if Nominet looked at it and said, right, this would work, but there needs to be greater security, then it could go and build the security. And then what have you got? You've got the .uk registry.
It's not just about the security, but it's about the ease of trading, of building,
much easier,
transferring it, approving ownership.
I imagine everyone in this room would be happy if they could just transfer domains and buy domains like that, rather than having to run through a harder process, right?
That's the primary reason. When you look at, you know, ENS domains that can be bought and sold on OpenSea in seconds without any of the problems and controls that exist today, I wonder what kind of innovative industry we're in, where we're dealing with people who are such laggards in adopting new technology. I mean, it seems crazy.
I think you have a good point. Any other questions? This has got very serious. It shouldn't be this serious, right? It's only going on about trust. I feel like I made it too heavy. But anyway, so fundamentally, Nominet works really well, by the way. It does do a good job. I know some of its systems need updating, and I know that it has problems with talking to members. But it's still good. It works well, and its technology is good, and its security is good, and it has money where it can do things that are better. But I do think it's this fundamental trust problem, and I do think the current people on the board don't have skill sets, don't have the skill set. Oh, I should say why I believe I have the skill set. But they don't have the skill set to do what I'm talking about, which is improving trust. The reason why I think that I can do it is basically that's what I've done for my career. Is I've been a journalist and a policy maker and a engagement. I was the general manager of public participation for ICANN, which basically was a similar situation. And it basically is putting in place structures to listen to people, where you have no skin in the game. You simply let's set up a structure where people can feel like they're being heard, and you arrive at a good decision, and the good decision is then put in place. That's what I like to do. And then I'm a journalist, which I like digging into things, and I like communicating, and that's the other part of it that I think no one needs to do. It needs to communicate. Say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and then write it in plain English so that you don't get an email where you have to figure out what the hell they're talking about. You just say, oh, this is what's going on. So that's why I'm standing. That's why I hope you will vote for me. And if you're not a member, then it was just, it's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieren.